Most men assume that talking more will automatically make them more likable, attractive, or influential. There's this pervasive belief that the more you share about yourself, the deeper the connection, the stronger the attraction. But that's a misunderstanding of how human psychology and social dynamics actually work. Talking too much often signals uncertainty, emotional dependence, or a lack of internal control. Attraction, influence, and respect don't come from filling every silence with words. They come from presence, composure, and the ability to communicate with intention. If you're interested in learning how to cultivate that kind of quiet authority and magnetic presence, subscribe now. The principles we'll discuss are grounded in real-life psychology and the dynamics of human behavior, not trends, gimmicks, or superficial advice. The first principle is that talking excessively often substitutes for inner composure. People who feel uncertain, anxious, or insecure tend to over-explain themselves, justify every action, or attempt to fill silence with stories. This pattern communicates that your value is dependent on others' approval rather than arising from internal stability. Women, and people in general, are drawn to men who operate from internal authority. A man who can listen attentively, pause, and speak with clarity signals composure and control. Excessive talking, by contrast, signals reactivity and diminishes attraction because it suggests a lack of self-mastery. Consider a dating scenario. A man might share every detail of his day, every thought, and every emotion in an attempt to bond. While he is being honest, the constant need to fill space can overwhelm the listener, subconsciously signaling neediness. A man who exercises restraint, sharing selectively while listening and observing, creates tension and presence, two factors that enhance desire. True confidence is visible in how you manage your attention and your words. Speaking less forces you to choose your contributions carefully, which communicates thoughtfulness, decisiveness, and composure. People are naturally drawn to those who speak with intention rather than habit. In leadership, for example, the most respected voices in a meeting are rarely the ones dominating the conversation. They are the ones who listen carefully, respond precisely, and guide discussion through clarity rather than volume. The same principle applies in social and dating contexts. When a man exercises restraint in conversation, his words carry more weight because they come from a place of internal authority rather than a need to be liked or approved. Silence is often misunderstood as discomfort, but in reality, it is a tool for demonstrating emotional control. People who feel compelled to fill every pause are signaling internal tension or insecurity. A man who can tolerate silence, observe the interaction, and respond thoughtfully communicates confidence and composure. This is a subtle but powerful factor in attraction. For instance, during a conversation with a woman, pausing to reflect before answering a question demonstrates that you are in control of your mind and emotions. Over-explaining, jumping to fill gaps, or responding impulsively undermines this authority. Emotional regulation is not about controlling others, it is about controlling your own responses, and it is foundational to maintaining attraction and influence. Talking excessively often violates personal boundaries without realizing it. By dominating conversation, offering unsolicited advice, or oversharing, you may inadvertently create discomfort or reduce the psychological space needed for mutual attraction. Respecting both your own and others' boundaries is, a key component of internal authority. For example, in a professional context, a man who contributes concise, relevant points during a meeting demonstrates both competence and respect for others' input. In social or romantic contexts, speaking selectively and listening attentively signals that your presence is valuable and that you are not dependent on external approval to maintain connection. Boundaries in communication create an implicit hierarchy of attention and respect, which honestly, naturally enhances attraction. Many men confuse attraction with approval. They think that sharing every thought, explaining every action, and justifying every decision will make them more desirable. But in reality, attraction is rooted in presence, the ability to exist fully in the moment, communicate with clarity, and maintain internal equilibrium. Constant talking often replaces presence with noise. In a dating scenario, a man who speaks sparingly but with intention communicates self-assurance. His words are received with interest, not fatigue. The listener experiences the contrast between his calm presence and the surrounding world, which naturally heightens desire. Presence, composure, and intentional communication are far more compelling than excessive disclosure or chatter. A man who talks too much often responds reactively rather than thoughtfully. This reactive pattern communicates instability, which diminishes both influence and attraction. Internal authority is reflected in how you process information, manage emotions, and respond deliberately rather than impulsively. For example, during a work discussion, a man who listens carefully, evaluates the situation, and speaks concisely demonstrates authority. In social interactions, pausing to observe body language, tone, and context before contributing signals composure and attentiveness. The ability to respond with deliberation rather than reaction establishes presence, trust, and subtle influence. Excessive talking can mask indecision. People who are unsure often over-explain in an attempt to convince themselves or others of their value or position. By contrast, a man who speaks with measured brevity communicates certainty. His choices are visible not only in what he does, but in how he expresses himself. Consider a dating scenario. A man who states his intentions clearly and concisely is far more compelling than one who offers lengthy explanations or caveats. Clarity and decisiveness in communication, paired with restraint, generate both respect and desire. This is because the listener perceives internal control, emotional stability, and self-mastery, all traits that attract naturally. Many men assume that to influence others, they must constantly speak, explain, or convince. Real influence, however, arises from the perception of internal control. When a man speaks less, observes more, and responds with clarity, he communicates that his internal state is not contingent on others' reactions. This makes his perspective inherently more persuasive. For instance, in a leadership context, a calm and concise comment during a tense discussion can shift the direction of the conversation far more effectively than continuous input. The same principle applies in social or romantic interactions. Measured communication signals authority and stability, which attracts attention and respect without coercion. One of the most overlooked psychological dynamics is that excessive talking often signals dependency. The more a man feels compelled to explain, justify, or narrate his life, the more he communicates that his self-worth depends on approval. Attraction, however, truly thrives in the context of autonomy. It's within self-sufficiency that real magnetism often emerges. People are drawn to those who are emotionally self-contained, whose attention and engagement are, choices rather than obligations. A man who can share thoughtfully, but also pause, reflect, and allow the other person space, communicates internal balance. This in turn creates a dynamic of mutual respect and desire, which is so different from the fatigue or subtle tension produced by relentless verbal overactivity. The principles here are not tricks, they are habits of internal mastery. Practice speaking with intention, observing more than you contribute, and pausing before responding. Notice where your words are reactive versus deliberate. Apply these practices in work meetings, social interactions, and dating. Over time, these habits compound into presence, authority, and attraction. Being articulate and kind is valuable, but, excessive verbal activity can dilute your influence and diminish desire. Let your words be an extension of your composure, decisiveness, and self-mastery. Speaking less, when done intentionally, communicates far more than words alone ever could. Talking too much does not make you interesting or attractive. In fact, it often undermines both influence and desire by signaling reactivity, emotional dependence, and, a lack of internal authority. Attraction, respect, and influence really flow from composure, decisiveness, emotional regulation, and the ability to speak with intention. Honestly, cultivating these qualities transforms both your presence and your impact in every social interaction. If you found this video insightful, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and share it with others who value psychology-based insights into confidence, influence, and personal authority. The work is internal, the results are external, and mastering the art of measured intentional communication is truly one of the most powerful tools for sustaining attraction and respect over the long term.